Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewinski and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. You're not gonna believe it, but it has happened once again. Can you guess what we're talking about? No? Well, how about a little hint? How many times can the same bridge be hit? The Security Service of Ukraine says the third time is the charm. And yes, this happened just 2 days after the massive attack on Russian airfields. Previously, the Ukrainian side hit the Crimean bridge twice, once in 2022 and once in 2023, meaning that yesterday they simply continued this proud tradition, albeit with a twist, because this time the strike took place underwater. And if earlier the attacks on the Crimean bridge looked like very loud warning shots, this time it was the real deal. A seismic shock emanating from the deep, courtesy of over 1,000 kilos of explosives, right in the pylons, you might say. Russian official sources, as usual, have cheerfully stated that traffic is partially restricted. Later on, the traffic allegedly resumed because public safety has never been among Moscow's priorities. Some sources indicate the blast specifically targeted the underwater pillars, which hold the whole structure upright. In theory, this could mean damage that's hard to assess from the outside and which could actually mean the bridge might begin losing stability later on. For Ukraine, the Crimean bridge is not just a simple landmark, but a symbol of illegitimate annexation, a symbol of the violation of international law. Plus, as Ukrainians have said on many occasions, Russian forces use this bridge for military transport, making it a lifeline for their illegal occupation and war effort. For now, the bridge, much like Putin's regime, is still standing. But when cracks begin to show, it might be too late to do anything about it. Russia has a long tradition of rewriting past events. These guys actually invented the retcon before it became a trend. There is a major difference there, however. Western retcons are mostly about fictional universes. You know, this or that Star Wars character used to be the bad guy, but now it turns out he has been a good guy all along because writers today need to fix the timeline for some reason. Well, in Russia, they retcon actual real-world history because the truth doesn't fit the current narrative. Case in point, the latest story from Russian propaganda queen Margarita Simonian. According to her latest vision, the Ukrainian language was invented by Austria and Poland. No, I'm not even kidding.
Этим в свое время увлекалась и понимала, как это важно, и Австрия, и Польша, которые, как известно, придумали украинский язык. Они придумали украинский язык для чего? Для того, чтобы оторвать ментально этих людей от нас, от русских, для того, чтобы объяснить им, что вы вовсе не один народ. Хотя, когда посмотришь на украинский язык, каким он был до того, как Австрия и Польша начали его украинизировать, населяя его и латинизмами, и венгерским, и тюркским, и каким только не, отрывая его от русского языка.
Well, let's try to figure it out, shall we? So according to the Kremlin folklore, Ukraine was allegedly invented by Lenin. This is an old story and a false one, so no need to dwell on that. But now we have learned that the language for Ukraine was also created artificially by Austria and Poland. Apparently, we're supposed to believe the Ukrainian language is a corruption of the Russian language, which is allegedly the OG, and the Ukrainian language is inferior because of influences of the decadent West. Which, of course, is classic Russian-style retroactive continuity with no logic whatsoever. It's the somehow Palpatine has returned situation, except it's Putin doing the rewrite. We have a question though. Why didn't Lenin himself invent a language for the country he allegedly created? We're not saying he should have Tolkien-level linguistic skills, making up languages for the cultures he creates, but at least he could come up, with something. Better still, Moscow should stop retconning reality and hire out its historical revisionism team to Hollywood. If anyone needs to shoehorn in some kind of the forest is the midichlorians actually kind of narrative into a movie, these folks have experience in spades. The fact that Simonian says these things with a serious expression on her face is not just information warfare, it is mind-bending as an experience where even simple laws of physics may actually be in doubt. If Austrians invented the Ukrainian language, then did the Swiss invent the borscht? And if Ukrainian culture is an invention, what about the fact that Kiev is several hundred years older than Moscow? And let's face it, many people in the West still don't realize how much Russia relies on making up the facts as it goes along. History be damned, it's the storytelling that matters, which sounds familiar, again, except instead of having ancient Romans drink coffee over a printed newspaper, nudge nudge wink wink, we're talking about a certain movie here, we actually get historical inaccuracies with real-life implications, which are being used not to make big bucks, but to justify war and ethnic cleansing. So remember, this time it's not your favorite fictional franchise that's at risk. It's global security. The Russian propaganda icon Vladimir Solovyov is back on the air. And this time he is not only shouting, but also calling for executions. The current target, however, is not NATO, not Zelensky, not imaginary biolabs, but Russia's own soldiers who dared to shoot videos during attacks on Russian airfields.
Видео, которое появляется оттуда, снимают срочники. А можно его расстрелять, этого срочника? Вот вывести эту сволочь и перед строем просто расстрелять, как предателя Родины, который просто сейчас работает в интересах врага. Нельзя. У нас же законы не позволяют. Мы же гуманисты. Нам даже его пожурить нельзя. Ну, конечно, ну что вы. Хотя в армии он не имеет права, правильно, чтобы у него был телефон. Но это же нельзя. У всех же все равно есть. Хотя он понимает, что есть ответственность. Какая ответственность? Дисциплинарная? По какой статье он может пройти?
Russian propaganda has long been tired of inventing heroic stories about fearless eagles, which are really plucked chickens, actually. So any real video from the front actually begins to look like sabotage, because there are no victories or liberated territories there, only poorly trained conscripted troops who couldn't tell directions even if they had quest markers on. And when the footage of a real defeat appears, it's easier to use them as scapegoats than to admit the Russian Air Force has failed big time. Okay, so Solovyov clearly thinks the Thrace video shoot is about exacting Stalinist-style retribution for Instagram stories. But tell me, what about those who started this war? The real goal of the war for Russians, it seems, is no longer to defeat someone at the front, but to preserve the media facade. Because for people like Solovyov, the main catastrophe is not the loss of equipment or the destruction of warehouses, but the leakage of the truth to the internet. Well, Mr. Solovyov, that ship has already sailed. And we already know a few cheap drones is all it takes to apply a 30% reduction to your strategic aviation, a debuff, if you will, to use a video game language. Newsflash, having a high-level character doesn't matter if you can't play the game. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.